This lesson is on grouping data. Now, thus far in the class, we've run select statements that have gone against all the data in a table, or data that's been restricted by a where clause. But SQL allows us to group data up into sets of data, and we can get summary information about categories. The group by clause is what we're going to use to specify whether we want data grouped by a column or by more than one column. We can use aggregate functions within a group by clause, and again, the group by divides the table into sets of data, and then these aggregate functions may return summary information for those sets. Here's the basic syntax of a group by clause. We have the select statement. Let's bring the cursor up here. Select statement, the listing of columns we want to see, the from and the table list. Thus far, we've only done one table, but we can do more than one. And then notice here that the where clause has these square brackets around it. This is not something that you actually code in the statement. This is a syntax indicator that says that this clause is optional. In other words, you can use a group by without a where clause. If you do use a where clause, it has to appear between the from and the group by. Now here's an example. We have selecting a pub ID and a count of the title. Now that's listing detailed information, the pub ID per row, and a count of the title. Normally that wouldn't be accurate from book, but because I have a group by clause on it, I'm grouping by the value of pub ID. This is the pub ID on the book table now, not the publisher's table. We can do this. So all the items in the select list that are not in a group by must generate a single value for each group. Let's go ahead and run this statement. So I've preloaded it here, and pub ID, group by pub ID. Let's submit it. So we see we have pub ID 1, 2, and 3. These represent the 3 publishers that are in our system. And it's counting the titles that are associated with that pub ID in the book table. And there are 6 for each one of these publishers. We have 18 books. Each one of them has 6. Let's go back. Now, there are some restrictions, as I mentioned. You don't want to put detailed information in here like pub ID and type unless you had both pub ID and type in the group by. Here I have just pub ID, and that's not going to give us accurate results for type. Let's go ahead and run that. Now here's the statement that has pub ID and type in the select list, but just pub ID in the group by. I'll run it, and I get 3 rows I have grouped by pub ID. And it's showing type here, cooking, business. But this isn't accurate because they have more than psychology books in the publisher 1 and more than cooking in 2. It's just showing us the first value that appeared. In other DBMSs like Oracle, for example, this would actually give you an error. So you've got to be careful to know to not mix up single detailed information along with summary information unless every column that's a single bit of information or detailed appears in the group by. Okay, so for example, I could add in type down here on the group by. Let's do that. And now I should get an accurate example. Now if you notice here, I have my grouping is now by pub ID and type. So I have a group that's pub ID 1 in business, and that has 1 book. I have another group that's group 1 in psychology with 5 books. My publisher, as publisher number 2, has some titles that are null, or the type is null, and they have cooking books, etc. So we're grouping by these 2 columns together forms a group when I put 2 in the group by. Let's go back to the slideshow for a second. Now, one null never really equals another null technically, but it would be very hard to display a separate group for every individual null that you might find in a 100,000 row table. So it makes an exception here in the group by, and it creates one separate group for any nulls that are found. Think of it as a group of unknowns. Now you don't have to use the where clause, and I haven't so far. I've grouped on the whole table. Select type, average price, group by type. Let's try that. Here it is. Select type, and I'll paste it in. Average price, book by type. Now I get a null group because I have a type null. And I'm grouping by type. So there's my null group, business, computer, cooking, and I'm getting the average price. So that worked just fine. If you want to see the groups in any kind of order, you still have to use the order by clause. You see here I have an order by as the last clause in the select statement. It always has to be the last clause. It doesn't matter whether you have a where or a group by or anything. It has to have that. Now notice in this statement as well, I added a where clause, where advance greater than 5,000. That was very much like the statement we just had, but now I've added the where in there. Now here's the deal. Remember that the where clause is applied first before anything else. It'll do where advance 5,000 and eliminate all those rows, and basically just return the ones where the advance is greater than 5,000. Then internally, it'll do the averaging on the price after it's eliminated those rows, and that'll group them and it'll sort them. So let's go ahead and try this. I'm going to add the where, advance greater than 5,000, and let me just run it without the order by. So we see we've got different averages here, and we've eliminated the null group because when I look for advance greater than 5,000, nulls never pass that criteria. Nulls are skipped over completely. Now, it looks like everything is kind of in order as it came back, but you cannot rely on that. So if I wanted to see this in a different order, for example, I could do order by type descending. Oops, I had an error here. Let's see what the error is. Oh, I left off the by in order. Let's leave the error here for you to see. It's always good to see these errors and see what we do to fix them. So here. So now I ordered by and I reverse this. If I wanted to order by the average price, I could use the number 2 because the number 2 represents the second position in the select list. So let me hit that. So now I'm in the order of average price, 12, 27, 29, 41. Let's go back to the slideshow. So I'm going to continue with this having clause in a part 2 of this presentation. So this ends the first part of our presentation on the group by clause.